On. Hi, good morning, every morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, good morning, every morning. Welcome to Saturday Moaning. She's live on Instagram. Some of you probably got her over there. Cut to her over there. Cut
to live on Instagram.
Oh, your dirty phone cover now.
Oh.
No, on the screen.
God, all right, don't show up with bloody phone
cover. She's got dirty cover. Morning, everyone. Welcome if you're listening on podcast. Welcome to Saturday Moaning. Thank you so much for tolerating what one of our dear followers and friends, Farida, clearly described as a little bit of a mania yesterday. I was a little bit, and I'm possibly a little bit there again today. Good morning, everyone. How are you all? It's incredibly grey and gruesome and miserable here, and that's just how I like it. Lots of love to Nanny Di. Thank you very much. Nanny Di sends her love back. Thank you. Morning Clodo, morning DP, morning Margaret O'Brien. So it's Saturday morning. It's Saturday morning. What a week. What a week. I mean, sometimes one feels that a Saturday is a moment to reflect on that week, and then you reflect on it, and then I want to punch myself in the face and break my jaw because it's so fucking frustrating. Everything's frustrating, everything's worrying, everything's frightening. And as if that's not enough, we've had Russian fighter jets over Estonia. That was a bit of news too far, even for me. I looked at it. Does anyone do that? You're across the news and you're like, fucking hell. You know, we're living through a genocide. People are still hand-wringing and mealy-mouthed and still trotting out the same tired lies around the narrative of events surrounding October the 7th and the justification for the annihilation. And then you look at America and you think it's slipping into fascism. And then you see here and you think, wow, the far right, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. The far right were better organized last weekend, not than I'm not talking about the Palestinian marches, but than, sadly, the squabbling, and is this the right word? Internecine. I need my mum here to say, is it internecine? Squabbling of your party. Whose party? Not my party, our party. Do you know what I mean? And then you sort of go, oh, Russian fighter jets over Estonia. Nah, can't do that. Not at the moment. I hate it when people say, I haven't got the bandwidth. Well, I didn't have the bandwidth yesterday for fighter jets over Estonia. Sorry, I just didn't. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, really, given it's been such an intense week, I've noticed that all of the kind of news outlets, the conventional news outlets, the legacy media, which is where, if you look back through the history of Saturday Moaning, we used to just lean on the papers. We'd get the papers. We'd nuzzle towards funny stories. There aren't as many funny stories anymore. Really, on our Sunday show, which obviously it will be back this coming week after last week, we kind of go for the more sort of what I would describe as features topics and light-hearted topics. But me and Nadia were talking in the week about how we're very mindful that Coffee Moaning was a very sort of, light, breezy approach to the news. And just the news has become very unlight and unbreezy. So me and Nadia are actually discussing ways in which we can get some of the content that we would talk about, like topics on Coffee Moaning. And I think it needs to be, maybe, God forbid, Nadia, you might, that's a lovely noise. Maybe there will be content elsewhere where we talk about lighter topics. Are you wanting me?
I just got...
What's wrong? This is very odd.
Ilan Volkov was arrested yesterday in Israel.
Oh, I thought I saw a clip.
That's him.
That's
him.
Arrested. The conductor.
Yes. If any of you saw this brilliant speech,
yes.
this Israeli conductor did, it was on my Instagram, it was everywhere, where he stopped at the proms, didn't he?
That's bizarre. I saw
and spoke out against genocide. He was arrested.
I saw footage of him being
taken off.
Oh, it was him.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it was. Is it on his Instagram?
I thought actually really upset.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you send me the clip? Because I'll try and get across it whilst we're live. I don't know if you remember, this was the conductor at the proms who called out.
Do you want the calling out?
The awfulness of the original. It's very hard for me to wrangle it unless you send me. Yeah.
Shall I download it?
Yeah. Anyway, I can't talk about something you can't see. You'll need to see it in order for me to explain it. But it's a conductor a very outspoken conductor, and he's been arrested. He's an Israeli conductor. That's right. So anyway, as I was saying, we are mindful and we are aware, but sometimes it's kind of impossible to kind of just stay light and stay breezy and stay fluffy, and me do press ups and Nadia take her top off and stuff like that. So the news today is interesting. Going through the kind of legacy media and mainstream media, the news is kind of like, it's almost like a pile up has happened in the week, and we're just hearing in a slow motion effect the kind of tinkering and crinkling of everything as it comes to a sort of halt before we all take a huge imbibation of breath. We all go, and we pause. That's just them getting ready for curly cooks. And we push onwards with next week's horrors. So in the news, we're going to talk briefly about the Russian fighter jets over Estonia, because I think I've got a little bit of bandwidth today. The Trump tyranny expands, I've got up there. This is in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, the Jimmy Kimmel suspension. I've got some responses, or there's a montage of responses from other chat show hosts, other comedians, etc., speaking to that. But we've also got a story here about how more and more people are being blacklisted, fired, pursued in various different industries in America, as the American kind of administration seeks people who've made light of the Charlie Kirk killing. It's also, I believe, Charlie Kirk's funeral tomorrow in Arizona. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of news flow around that. And Gaza City and Israel and Gaza. And I've got some clips. We've got a clip from Gaza City. And I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but it feels like even on all of the kind of the media outlets, Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera, Novara Media, Eye on Palestine, various kind of, Middle Eastern sympathetic, or just recognizing the fucking horror outlets, The Guardian even, that the footage and the material and the content, it isn't really coming out of there. And there's a very simple reason for that. That's because there's been a huge blackout across huge swathes of Gaza. Technology just doesn't work. Getting clips and footage out doesn't work. As we saw with the attack on Nasser Hospital, getting clips out for journalists is one of the most dangerous moments for a journalist. If you've ever in your everyday life done that thing at a friend's house where you're trying to send a text or book an Uber and you're reaching out of their window with your phone in the air to get service, imagine that times 50 trying to get a vital clip out. And if you've ever spent ages looking at an airdrop or sending clips and you're thinking, why is it taking so long? Imagine how long it's taking them in Gaza to get a clip out, and getting that clip out, you also run the risk of being shot or droned. So that's why we're not seeing so much. It's why we're not seeing so much.
I just found out.
Sorry.
It's been released now.
Oh, okay.
It was part of the walk to the flotilla.
Okay, so crisis over, is it? Crisis over? Okay. So I don't know whether he's been arrested, has been arrested, or been released. So I don't know. So I do apologize. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Gaza. We've got some clips from Gaza. We've also got some really quite unedifying comments from people like Ben Gvir. If you find Benjamin Netanyahu really triggering, then Ben Gvir is just a next level of Israeli government horror. So let's look at the big headlines in most of the papers. NATO intercepts Russian fighter jets on reckless violation of Estonian airspace. Now, the thing about this story that is a wee bit concerning, if we can find the bandwidth for it. Morning, Jill. Hope you had a lovely birthday. So Estonia has requested an Article 5 of NATO is if you attack a NATO country, one for all and all for one. And it's like, is it D'Artagnan? It's like the Three Musketeers. Article 4 is when your airspace or an infringement or a potential bad thing happens, and you can call for a consultation with all your NATO allies. Blimey. Bless you. And they've requested that because this is the second time in, I think, 10 days, because, of course, there were the drones that came flying over from Russia that entered Polish airspace. So, of course, for many in the West, the feeling here is this, and I'm going to ask you a yes-no question, is this Russia prodding and testing and poking the bear, or are these just two oversights? I mean, many experts and many military experts say for such a sophisticated air force, such as the Russian one, this is demonstrably reckless behavior rather than a mistake. Fighter jets don't lose control. I mean, I think Russia claimed that the drones over Poland had been jammed by Ukrainian jammers, and then they got trapped sort of in the airspace. That kind of sounds feasible. That sounds feasible. But who thinks that the Russians here are kind of going, well, let's just test the unity of the NATO alliance? Who thinks they're prodding and testing and poking the bear? The EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, former Estonian Prime Minister, said that this was an extremely dangerous provocation and said that the latest Russian violation further escalates tensions in the region. Now, me and Nadia know someone who is Estonian, and they were saying, then obviously they're here, but they say that at home and in Estonia and in other countries like Lithuania and Latvia, lots of people live with guns under their bed because they're worried that the Russians will literally just come in over the border. Russians being smart here, yes. MS, when you say smart, what do you mean? Just to see, they're just a little bit of poke and prod to see how distracted we are. Okay, call me cynical, not conspiracy, but because Trump loves Putin, he's a lovely man. I love that man. He's got such a lovely head. The way he walks, the red carpet is second to none. Given that Trump has such a sort of bromance with Putin, who thinks this might have happened? Who thinks this has a lot of support? So Russia has a lot of support. From Slovakia. Who thinks this could be the case? So Trump's not happy, and he's going to say he's not happy. But privately, what if he is happy? I know, it's a shocking thought, that isn't it? What if privately all the Americans are saying, well, we've got to telegraph to the world that we're one for all and all for one, we're with NATO. But what if Trump is like a true toddler? And bear with me on this. He got his theme park ride around Englandland. He went in a gold coach. He ate food that he can't remember because it was just like, yeah, we ate whatever. I ate whatever they put in front of me. Had big banquet, the longest table. I looked at more paintings than any person has ever seen paintings on a wall. Obviously, they tested his patience with paintings. He's had his England theme park ride, but now he's gone back to America. It's like, well, that's never going to happen again. Cut him loose. Who thinks that Trump will say he's worried about this? But who thinks that maybe him and Putin have just gone, Putin's like, I want Eastern Europe back, and Trump's like, fucking have it, fine, whatever. Chief Wiggum, after Gaza, the West needs to shut up about Ukraine. They've lost all legitimacy. I entirely agree, Chief Wiggum. You're not wrong, and you're not wrong, basically. Can't say you're not right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So yeah, NATO intercepts Russian fighter jets. Could be aggression. Could be part of a broader worrying development. Breaking. I don't love it. Trump warns Putin of big trouble. Let's go to the big man himself in the Oval Office now.
When that happens, it could be big trouble.
Sir, Russian jets entered Estonia's airspace today for 12 minutes. Do you see that as a threat to NATO?
Well, I'm going to have to look at it. They're going to be briefing me in a short while, so I'll let you know about it tonight or tomorrow.
What's your take in general?
Well, I don't love it. I don't love it when that happens. It could be big trouble, but I'll let you know later. They're going to brief me in about an hour.
Could be big trouble in little China or little Russia. I mean, what did someone, Sharon Carter, sorry. Is Trump a Russian Trojan horse? I think he might be. I think it's very easy to just sort of present to the world, yeah, we don't like him, we're going to do sanctions. I mean, nothing prohibitive has happened. I mean, I think it's a carve-up. I think we're on the precipice of an enormous carve-up. The Americans, as manifested by, when I talk about Americans, I don't talk about all Americans, obviously. But I'm talking about Trumpian Americans, the Americans that have got America by the bollocks and are squeezing tight. I don't think they give a flying fuck about Europe at all. I mean, they're not near us. They're not, if we got nuked, it wouldn't bother them. Me too. Thanks for always bringing things down back to a level of kind of calm. The Russians violate airspace all the time, but NATO will never fire on a jet or a vessel. The NATO policy is that Russia has to fire first. Ooh. But then you could argue, is Russia kind of looking to trigger or nudge or trip one of these Eastern Bloc countries into a bit of a response. Who knows? We won't know. Okay, so let's go over to America. That's the bandwidth for Russian fighter jets and World War III and all that kind of stuff. I nearly called it World War IV. Trump tyranny expands. Dozens of workers penalized after Charlie Kirk shooting, from journalists through to Jimmy Kimmel. Who here is perhaps a supporter of Donald Trump and everything? And who here thinks that people should be punished for, I don't know, okay, let's start at the most extreme level. For anyone, I mean, we called that out too. I mean, I know a lot of people have been like, he lived by the sword, he died by the sword. He talked about the consequences of gun crime and said it was the collateral damage that we needed to tolerate, i.e. people will get shot. That's what, and he became shot. He died, at the hands of his own ideology. Who thinks to say that, to say, well, Charlie Kirk got what was coming to him? Who believes that's wrong, or who indulged in saying that? Who said that? I mean, I saw a lot of comments, not necessarily here, but I know a lot of people felt that sort of tenor or tone crept into stuff that I saw, which was, well, what did he expect? Well, he kind of got what he deserved type thing. I think we said at the time, I think as soon as you start to walk down that route, it poisons your own soul. Spinner's End. I'm an American and it goes against freedom of speech. Trump won't stop there. So who thinks? So for that sort of delighting in the death of someone, I can kind of understand someone being, warned or cautioned. That's why I was so shocked when I actually looked at the Jimmy Kimmel clip, if anyone's seen it. I mean, it's a very lighthearted joke. It's not taking advantage or exploiting his death. He did, in fact, Jimmy Kimmel post something, I think on Twitter or X, or that is Twitter, sort of reaching out and saying this is an awful event, etc., etc. And he felt for the family. But anyway, so Donald Trump is kind of, he's tightening the noose around any kind of opinion that isn't his. In the aftermath of the far-right activist Kirk's assassination, dozens across the US have been fired, suspended, or disciplined over social media posts about Charlie Kirk and his death, as employers and public officials crack down on remarks they deem to be inappropriate. J.D. Vance said, "Call them out and call their employer. We don't believe in political violence. We do believe in civility." Civil liberties groups and free speech advocates have warned that the wave of firings and expulsions risks chilling free expression and could infringe on the First Amendment protections. Now, Ted Cruz, who, Ted Cruz he's that sort of weird Republican who sort of, keeps doing interviews about the biblical claim to Israel and all this kind of stuff. He kind of, in a curious kind of interview or chat, he said he thought that what Trump was doing was akin to the mafioso in Goodfellas. But at the same time, he was saying he shouldn't have said it, or that Jimmy Kimmel was right to be fired. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel criticized how the government is skewing the Charlie Kirk killing. He wasn't taking advantage or delighting in the fact that he'd been killed. So lots of people are being fired. Lots of people, government workers, the US Secret Service placed an employee on leave last week after them writing on Facebook that Kirk spewed hate and racism on his show. In the media world, obviously, Jimmy Kimmel has gone. Many people are worried about other companies, broadcasters, potentially firing people. Across the country, US educators and employees of educational institutions are being fired or placed on leave over social media posts. And the reason this is happening is, of course, every organization that depends on the American government for funding is slightly fearful that they will be punished. But boy, guys, is anyone old enough or kind of historied up enough to remember the McCarthy trials? This is worrying. This is like pursuing people, maybe a telling off, maybe there's a taste and decency sort of aspect, but then there is skewing taste and decency somewhere else. Reese Roberts, a Black Washington Post journalist, has been fired for providing context about Charlie Kirk's past. Exactly. I noticed there were a couple of people who came on, that some of our allies, when we described what Charlie Kirk said in some of his clips, and obviously this isn't all of the man, but when you listen to some of the things he said, and you can definitively say, okay, well, that's racist, and okay, and that's sexist, oh, and okay, that's kind of supporting the annihilation and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza. To say those things doesn't mean you're then saying he deserved to die. So I think that's a really important point that Reese makes. You know, I think what the Trump regime is trying to do, and what a lot of supporters of Charlie Kirk are trying to do, is to suggest that to literally describe what he's saying in its own terms, which is, yeah, America first. Yeah, he might have towards the end been becoming critical and less on board with Israel and their policy in Gaza, but he still held these horrible thoughts. To say that that's what happened in his life isn't to say he deserved to die. But I think that's what's happening. Those thoughts are being conflated. Who thinks, okay, bearing in mind this is America and we're in Britain, who thinks or who looks at these stories, because we do, does anyone else here look at these stories or look at look at the evolution of this infringement on freedom of expression, clamping down on any opposition? So, for example, I'm trying to think of an equivalent here. Say, for example, God forbid, Tommy Robinson was taken out, and something, you know, he's a sort of representative of some of the same values, maybe less articulate, perhaps. But say he was taken out, and then a sort of martyrdom sort of developed around him. Who could imagine, you know, people like Farage and the Conservatives and people saying, well, you're not allowed to say what he says is racist. I mean, I suppose you could argue most people on the march, even on the kind of Unite the Kingdom march, would say, we're not racist, but. If you're dealing with someone who says we're not racist, but, you're never going to get around them, are you? You just can't get around them because they genuinely think they're not racist. What I'm asking is, who thinks what's happening there could happen here? Because I think that Tommy Robinson comparison, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that will happen or could happen, but I was just the other day, I was just thinking, God, what would it be like here? Is there a precedent here that could be repeated here? And I thought, yes, there is. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Julie Fairbank. Very kind of you. Thank you. Yes, sorry, but I'm anti Mr. Five Names. I think Jesus breaks. America first really means, sorry, some of these comments aren't completing. Yes, Victoria Moore, it can happen anywhere, Clodagh. Susan Crockett, definitely. YouTube, do you think, no, our laws are better? There's a feeling that, I think I'm with you on that one, Mitchell. I feel like we're slightly more robust. We also don't have, I mean, we have guns, but we don't have a free availability of guns. Sometimes when people say we don't have guns, so that's a good thing, I sometimes think, yes, that is a good thing. But sometimes I wonder whether if one was taken out, would one rather it be a bullet than a blunt instrument? I do worry it's going to be cudgels and sticks. That sounds painful, doesn't it? MS, our judgments are better. I hope so. Well, let me just play for you. I just want to play for you some of the responses which have been pulled together, I think, by Sky News, of comedians and other chat show presenters, etc., in the aftermath of the Jimmy Kimmel suspension.
Blatant censorship, and it always starts small. You know, remember like in week 1 of his presidency, Gulf of America. Call it Gulf of America. Sure, seems harmless, but with an autocrat, you cannot give an inch.
Anyway, to sum it up, President Trump is
making America great again.
We have another fun, hilarious, administration compliant show.
I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump.
Well, guys, the big story is that Jimmy Kimmel was suspended by ABC after pressure from the FCC, leaving everyone thinking WTF. Yeah, a lot of people are worried that we won't keep saying what we want to say or that we'll be censored. But I'm going to cover the president's trip to the UK just like I normally would. Anyway, to sum it up, President Trump is
making America great again by restoring our national reputation, reinvigorating our economy, and rebuilding our military. I hereby nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize.
And you can quote me on that.
Donald Trump is on his way back from a trip to the United Kingdom where he was met with protests, while back here at home, his administration is pursuing a crackdown on free speech. And completely unrelated, I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump. I've always believed he was, a visionary, innovator, a great president, and even better golfer. And if you've ever seen me say anything negative about him, that's just AI. I have been told there's some clips of me on the internet making jokes about him from a few years back. Those are obviously deep fakes. I mean, come on. Does that look like me? That's clearly Teen Sheldon.
You get what I'm driving at. I just noticed someone there said Carol Beach. I'm not sure our laws are better, given the DPP Michael Ellis statement. It's not a genocide. I think our courts are open to influence. Not all, but some. I think there is a constant exception to the cause, or exception to the rule, and that's Palestine. Sadly, I don't think we had a situation this past week, which I don't think still the Labour Party or the Labour government haven't attended to, where the United Nations declared a genocide is happening. 7 days before that, the British government had declared there was no genocide, so that they could make the visit of Israel's president all the more palatable for everyone, probably for the Israeli president. Then the UK declares no genocide. The United Nations declares a genocide. Then we're theoretically going to have Palestine recognized. As I said yesterday, show us it on a map, Starmer. Don't really know what you're referring to. What do you mean? Make it clear, be definitive, and be direct and specific. So, I like Trump, Marina O'Driscoll. Okay, well, that's good. I mean, someone has to. Lots of people do. But there's a part of Trump I used to find very entertaining. But each time I see him now or hear from his mouth, I sort of think, oh, my God, he's becoming more and more indulgent. I mean, what we're seeing in sort of, not even in real time, but in sped up time, is the overindulgence of another man baby. A little bit like Netanyahu, and look at the consequences of what happened in Israel. The fewer people that push back against Trump, and the more he removes people who can push back against him, then the more his overreach will overreach. The audio on this isn't particularly good. I screen recorded it. It's not great, but listen to how Donald Trump deals with a female journalist in the press pack in the Oval Office. This is just, I mean, to be brutally honest, she was a bit grating to begin with, but just listen to the language he uses.
New Orleans. We have to save New Orleans.
Mr. President, when are you going to get
We're going to be going into New York too.
Mr. President,
and we're going to be going in quiet. You're really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I'm trying to ask you, what about your plans
You are
for
really
Memphis?
obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I am asking, what are your plans for Memphis?
Quiet. I mean, and then did you see the way he dealt with the Australian ABC reporter? You're doing a disservice to Australia. I mean, this is a man who, if a journalist asks a question that he's uncomfortable with or doesn't like, there's the tangible risk that suddenly the country that journalist is from, the country will receive a whole host of tariffs. I mean, it's quite shocking. It's quite shocking. So loose swimming, having Stormy Daniels on this week was savage. Yeah, no, it was a good. Yeah, you'll probably ban that too. So dozens of workers. U.S. attorney tasked with inquiring into Trump critics resigns after president says, I want him out. So he's purging people who challenge him. Ted Cruz compares threats to ABC by the FCC chair to those of a mafioso boss. Says U.S. broadcast regulator acting like mafioso on Jimmy Kimmel. But then he goes on to say that he's quite happy that he was fired. So hard to trust someone who cannot apply makeup properly, says Rebecca B. So Many Books. I mean, I presume he has someone to do that for him, doesn't he? Let's just have a look. So here we go. Let me just get rid of this banner. That's really annoying. There we go. IDF warns aid workers. This is just ridiculous. IDF warns aid workers only hospitals, now just bear with this, are safe sites in northern Gaza. Can anyone tell me why, perhaps, perchance, possibly, any aid workers in Gaza might not trust or believe this headline? The IDF warns aid workers only hospitals are protected sites in northern Gaza. Now, there's no kind of live feed. This is an interesting detail. At the moment, there's no real live feed on any of the mainstream media news sites regarding Gaza. The news flow, it's a kind of war of attrition. The Israelis, the IDF are just, incrementally taking over Gaza City. I think something like 250,000 Gaza City residents have been forced out, are on the move. But in this story, it's interesting because this is just one of very few stories that are in the papers today. Humanitarian workers in northern Gaza have been repeatedly warned by the IDF that only hospitals will be considered protected sites. Well, excuse me, Israel, but you've bombed and attacked every single hospital in Gaza. So forgive them for not thinking that might be true. In messages with aid workers seen by The Guardian, the IDF said an order to all Gaza residents and inhabitants to evacuate Gaza City applied to all humanitarian locations there except hospitals. So they're going to bomb everything bar hospitals, which, given that they've bombed all hospitals, means they're just going to carry on bombing everywhere. I sometimes wonder why the IDF even issues these statements. It must be just to kind of, as we discovered a couple of weeks ago, you know, IDF soldiers and IDF sergeants and leaders, they have a legal team alongside them, just triple checking how they can float gross breaches of international law and war crimes, how they can get that past the mainstream media in the West. On Friday, the IDF said it had expanded its operations in Gaza City, had bombarded Hamas infrastructure. What we're discovering is Hamas infrastructure in Gaza is every single building in Gaza. I mean, I don't know why they keep trying to distinguish between Hamas infrastructure and just infrastructure, because they're just bombing everything. It's now it's emerged that vehicles for certain people left in the city, so hang on, between 250,000 and 500,000 of the city's estimated 1 million inhabitants have already fled. But some displaced Palestinians are so traumatized by the advance, they have no means to leave. Now, we've said it before. Imagine if we had my father-in-law, my mother, and we were, you know, in Gaza City, there would be no way on earth we would be able to leave. Vehicles for the grueling 6 to 8 hour journey south can now cost as much as £1,500 to get the fuel, which is being, you know, stopped from getting in. It's just media spin Israeli style genie bottle. Thank you very much. That's exactly what it is. Listen to this. Most of northern Gaza is already empty of civilians. So northern Gaza is a wasteland. If Israeli troops take over Gaza City, that will mean that the entire 2.1 million population, which is what it was at the beginning, so it's probably a lot less than that, of Gaza will be now confined to a small enclave in the south. So, you know, the thing that we were all outraged about, the kind of concentration camp concept of squeezing the Gazan, the Palestinians into a small strip down there, it's happened. It's almost happened. It's almost happened. And it's happening incrementally each day. And because the news flow is limited, because it's so fucking dangerous to get the news out, and because the West is pissing about and playing with itself, talking about, well, recognize a Palestinian state. That all that's happening in the West is they're talking about administrative details, and absolutely nothing is changing on the ground. I used a really blunt comparison yesterday. Is recognizing a Palestinian state, Starmer, going to stop parents having to carry their children, their dead children, in bags to whatever remaining hospitals there are for identification? No, it's not. This is administrative nonsense. And the Israelis know it's administrative nonsense. Have a listen to Ben Gvir. You'll have to read this. He's speaking in Hebrew. But look at him. I call Ben Gvir, for me, is like a cheap Israeli. He's got the similar. I think he might have watched a lot of what's it called? Kitchen Disasters. What's the show where Kitchen Nightmares? Where oh God, what's his name? Oh my God, Gordon Ramsay. You know, when he comes out and he's trying to kind of turn a restaurant around, and he does that thing where he talks to the side and he goes, it's just fucking ridiculous. I don't know. I'm going to have to go back in there. I'm going to have to do. This guy, I think, has modeled his presenting skills on Gordon Ramsay. But have a listen to what he's saying here to the police about Gaza.
רוצה להקים שכונת שוטרים גם בעזה. החוף הים אגב, מקום מושלם, גם בעזה. מפכ"ל, אנחנו נקים שם שכונת שוטרים מפוארת, בניינים גבוהים כאלה, אבל עם כל הייצור, ובעזרת השם ננצח. התיישבות מביאה לביטחון, הגיע הזמן להתיישב.
Settlement leads to security. Imagine feeling so I mean, the only insecurity that has been created by these absolute morons is their treatment of their neighbors and the indigenous population. You know, isn't it interesting when you re-skew the narrative that we've been sold of everyone in the region doesn't want Israel to exist, everyone is anti-Semitic, everyone wants us not. Well, hang on a minute. No, what people don't want is a school bully in the yard punching everyone in the face all the time. That's what they don't want. They don't necessarily I mean, you know, let's not beat around the bush. It's not particularly pleasant the way Israel was plonked in the center of already existing communities, civilizations, societies. But, you know, given that I think you've got a lot of free goodwill in that, okay, well, we'll tolerate this, we'll accept it. And then you keep wandering around saying the only way we can get security is through settlements. Just stop being an absolute monster. Just stop being monstrous, and you know, people might start talking to you again. It's quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable. This is footage from Gaza City last night. Not much footage is coming out. Here's some. Systematic and constant, and in the meantime, Donald Trump's administration still plans to send sell $6.4 billion in weapon sales to Israel. The bit about that I don't understand is when you sell $6.4 billion worth of weaponry to Israel, are they buying it with the money you sent them before that in the $3 billion aid package? I'm curious to know, where has Israel suddenly found $6.4 billion? And it's like someone said, if they're sending another $6.4 billion, that's not to continue the self-defense of Israel. That's to complete the extermination of a race. It does say Satu moaning. It's let me put this banner back up. There you go. Very attentive. Farida, my friend visited. I think there are many skeletons under the hills there in Cambodia. Oh, sorry, you're talking about Cambodia. Vile government. All they do is because of a stupid book. Oh, and on that note, let's have a listen to this guy who literally is so slavishly attached to this book. You just sort of think, Jesus Christ, I didn't know so many MAGA Americans were so well read.
It was 4,000 years ago here in this city on Mount Moriah where God chose his people. He not only chose a people, but he chose a place. And then he chose for the people in this place a purpose. The people were the Jewish people. The place was Israel. And the purpose was to be a light to the world and to show that we don't have to look for God because he is looking for us.
And if he found you, he would be fucking embarrassed. He would be so fucking embarrassed to have found you. I mean, you know, by the same extent, I've said it before, by the same extension, if you're standing there banging on about a 4,000-year claim, but you can't recall 76 years ago when Israel didn't exist, and America wasn't around over 250 years ago, who can claim what to what land? I've said it many times before. That means by the same durational kind of extent, then the Romans should claim London, the Native American, people indigenous tribes of America should claim every part of America. It's patently absurd. I don't think anyone's ever said to him, Huckabee, by the same extension, you could apply this to every single piece of land on the planet. And that's parking to the side that you're basically basing all of this on a religious document that has been interpreted, translated, and adjusted for political and cultural and geographical gain across time, and you're treating it like a land deed. You're treating the so-called words from to a lot of people, either fictional God or a different God. You're ascribing some kind of land deed to this mythical stuff. This is so effervescent and ethereal and non-specific and unpindownable. It's bizarre. It's madness. It's madness. If you actually remove the religious contingent to it, if you think about what he's attaching all of this to, this 4,000 biblical, it's a scintilla away from sectionable insanity. He needs to be locked up. They all need to be locked up. Utter madness. Utter madness. Now, I just want to also just pivot towards the flotilla, which is still proceeding. They're sort of I think last time I looked on the tracker, this is the, break the Gaza siege of Gaza, Samud flotilla. I think they were just passing, or they just passed beneath Sicily. I think that's right. But anyway, I want to ask our Irish followers, how do you pronounce the guy who's with them, Tadg, T-A-D-G? How do you phonetically pronounce his name? Is it Tad? Is it Tad or Tag? Tad? I know that the Irish pronunciation is maybe different. Anyway, he's posted an update, and I just thought it was kind of neat just to see where he's at.
A lot of people saying that I haven't posted an update for a while. I haven't had time, guys. I'm lifting water. I'm cleaning my clothes with a toilet brush. I'm down cleaning out bunkers and pulling and dragging and everything. And I'd say when I get home, my partner would be like, who is this intruder? Who's this useful intruder in my home? But no, it's all go, and we're getting into our final leg. Now, I know I'm saying that for a while, guys, but you've got to be patient. We're at sea. There's a lot of complications at sea. There's been a few drone strikes. But we are unbowed and unbroken, and we will be in Gaza, all going well, inside a week, I would say. Now, don't trust me on that, because I'm an idiot. But no, people who know a lot more about it than I do would say that we're definitely in the latter stages. Now, one of the things I was hoping to mention in this update was the bold Greta Thunberg. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of spending some time with her on this mission. When we were on land there recently, she trolled me furiously because I was pretending to be upset that nobody was looking for a photo with me as soon as she came along. And then when a couple of women were asking for a photo with her, she sent them in my direction, and they obviously didn't know who I was, and they stood for a photo with me anyway. And I said, why are you here? And they said, well, Greta told us to come over and get a photo with you. Like top level trolling. And it really, having spent a little bit of time with her, it's all the more pathetic, I think, when you hear largely middle-aged, middle-class white men who are so furious at this young powerhouse of a woman. And I get it now. They are so intimidated, and their minds are blown by her authenticity. They say it's a vanity project for her. She's jumping on the next thing. Well, my goodness, I've never seen somebody involved in a vanity project before, cleaning toilets, insisting on sleeping where everyone else sleeps, not having a room to herself, not getting any privileges at all for being one of the most famous people on earth. There is an integrity there, an authenticity there, as I say, that I would say just terrifies most of the Western media class, who have no humanity and have no soul, actually. And when they encounter somebody with a particularly bright soul and a particularly beautiful humanity, they have to get into a zero-sum game mentality. They have to try and take her down, lest they be exposed for what they are, which is inhuman stenographers for a genocide. So that's my little thoughts on her. And I mean, just the cherry on the cake, if you can wrap your head around this, is that her dog is from Cork. Like, I'm from Cork. Me and her dog were reared possibly in the same kennel. Who knows? So people from Cork or connected to Cork watching this video, please send in pictures of Tenora, Patrick Street and Tripe and Drosheen for Roxy, now living in Sweden, but originally from Cork.
For those of you asking that, thank you for explaining the pronunciation. So it's Tyg. He's a humanitarian, an activist, comic, and he's on Greta Thunberg's ship heading towards Gaza. He's very funny, he's very sharp, and he just speaks the truth. And I loved what he said there, another reminder of, and we talked about this a lot on the previous flotilla, the idea that, yeah, these middle-class male, the establishment, not just middle-class white men, but, you know, the middle-class white women, the Mail and the Telegraph and papers like that, they are intimidated. They have to try and characterize someone who is who cares as much as, say, Greta Thunberg does. They have to try and dismiss it. They have to minimize her capacity for care, for heart, for soul. But they don't just do it with her. I mean, Nadia receives the same kind of nonsense. There is a suspicion. There is forever a suspicion of anyone who has a big heart, because usually that suspicion comes from people who are so incapable of either having a big heart or accessing their heart. And when they see it in someone else, they become intimidated, they become threatened. And as he says, it's a kind of zero-sum reductive pull-down that kicks in, because actually it's too painful when you have a calcified, sort of small, tight, you know, selfish heart. It's really quite threatening and frightening to see not just Greta, but to see other people who have a much bigger heart than you. And it's a little bit like when I stopped drinking, a lot of people stepped away from me because my sobriety became not something, it wasn't about me, but it threatened their the ease with which they could carry on drinking. They didn't want to face questions about their own drinking. And in a weird way, you know, stopping drinking, and the friendship circle, people would say, oh God, I don't know if I can, it's not as much fun hanging out with you when you're not as drunk and as stupid and destroying your life as you used to be. It's a similar thing. There's a sort of po-faced kind of, oh, I don't want to get on board with that and I need to knock it, because actually it requires too much work and it requires too much of me to think and feel difficult things to be able to do that. And I think I have huge admiration for all of the campaigners, all of the crews and the humanitarian activists that are heading there. It's a symbolic flotilla. It's and that symbolism can sometimes be infinitely more important than necessarily the literal physical aid they're taking. And it's funny, it's people in the media who knock it and go, what do you mean it's symbolic? It's not going to do anything. They are talking so literally. They haven't got a romantic, heartfelt bone in their body if they can't understand that symbolism is as important to a human and to the people of Gaza as literally, you know, some baby formula might be. So, so yeah, I just thought that was really nice. And thank you for helping me be able to pronounce his name, Tyg. Well, on that note, I'm going to sum up. There we go. We'll sign off even. Curly Cooks in 10 minutes. See you over there. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for all of your thoughts. Thank you for all of your love and kindnesses sent to my ma. Yeah, have a good day. And obviously, you know, we'll be keeping our eyes on the news. Anything kind of big or spiky that lands, we will go live and join you. See you in 10 minutes for some tasty, tasty food.